welcome to my show today. Today's show was inspired by a comment that I got, which was, why do I always seem to be talking about set size, how big the box is? Well, honestly, I do think about it a lot because when you have a lot of sets, you have to store them. And storage becomes a huge, huge issue. I'd say when you get more than 50 sets, you have to figure out where to put them. Finding high quality sets in smaller boxes really helps you be efficient in your storage. Now, of course, that brings us to the real topic of today, which is how are you storing all your sets? Now, even if they're built and displayed, I don't possibly have nearly enough room to display all this stuff, but even if they are built and displayed, you still have to store the boxes. Now, some people will cut the seals and store them flat. I like to actually look at the box art, and I have these out here purely as a backdrop. Most of my sets are in boxes, but I do think it's cool to see all the stuff, right? You get to see all the pictures. I think that's really, really neat. So I love to show and display the boxes. But how do I actually do that? What are the things to look for when you're trying to store all your sets? Well, as you can see behind me, I have these Edsel shelves, which are 18 inches deep. They're my preferred set for display of preferred shelves for display of small sets because they're easy to put up. They support the sets really well, and they work for all these small ones. Now, what they don't work for are these bigger sets. See, I have this one tucked in here, how it hangs off the edge. These sets are 19 inches deep. This one's 23 inches deep, so it doesn't quite fit on that 18-inch shelf, and it'll hang over the edge. Don't be tempted to put these big sets on these little shelves. Also, don't be tempted to use wire shelves. Really, really bad for Lego sets because the wire cuts into the bottom of the box. Even if you put cardboard down to help cushion that, the edge wire will cut in. Also, watch out for metal shelves with particle board that have a raised edge and the particle board sits down because, again, your Lego set will hit that edge and be creased on the bottom without some extra shimming. So I really like these ones, about $100 for these three. And I pretty much just use these for displaying the sets. I don't really use them for storing sets long term. So what do I do for long-term storage? Well, let's take a look at my library of big sets. All right, well, here you go. Here's my shelving that I use as my library of sets to use for the show. And you see the shelving that I use for this is this wooden shelving that I built myself. Now, one of the key things about this shelving is that it's 24 inches deep, so it can fully support all of the large sets without them having to worry about sagging, without having to learn about the edging, not cutting into the bottom of the box. And remember, those other shelves was about $100 for three of them. All the wood for this is less than $100 for an entire set of the shelf. You have about 12 2x4s, a couple sheets of 3/4 inch plywood, and I know it's really studly to be able to lift a full sheet of 3/4 inch plywood and move it yourself, but if your home center will rip it for you in half, much, much better on your back. So you have some half sheets of 3/4 inch plywood, and you essentially build these shelves with a center support, some edge pieces, and then I screw them together to the 2x4s. Now, these can be adjusted to however big you want them. Very, very simple to build, and it's just so, so much better. I have about 6 of these shelves scattered throughout various storage areas, and they just work really, really well, especially for these big sets. Now, why do I care about how big sets are? Well, let's take a look here. Here I have some of the biggest sets ever. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And look at what it compares to on top. It can fit 11 in that same size space. Anyway, so starting here, I have these in order. Do you notice how I have these sets all arranged? They're in order of time when they were released. So the date of when they were released. So the oldest sets here, all the way up to the newest one. Right? There's the Millennium Falcon down there at the end. Now, I don't have all of them in here. I'm working on trying to get them all in here because I think it is really, really cool as a visual reference that we can look at these large exclusives and see what they're doing, what's retiring, what's new. And speaking of what's retiring, what is retiring off the shelf? Well, judging from the catalog that says last chance in the catalog, to ones that are on sale, to ones that are marked as retiring soon, we know that Palace Cinema is retiring. The Simpsons house is retiring. Now, in here that I don't have is the Slave One and the Mini Cooper. No signs of them retiring. Helicarrier is retiring. I think the TIE Fighter is going to retire. On this side, the Quickie Mart is retiring. F40 is retiring. And then if we skip a few, no, this isn't really where the pet shop goes. This is Battle of Hoth. This is probably also retiring. And the Batcave is retiring. So you can see which ones of these sets, of the oldest sets, are being picked out and retiring. And so it'll be good to get those off of the shelf so I can have some more room to fit in some of the new ones, like the Ninjago City set that I need to get in there, some of the Minecraft exclusives that I'd like to get in there. But what's key about storing this stuff now? You can see how well it fits all the sets, and I really pack them tightly together to keep from sagging. So you can see these ones don't pack together quite as tightly because the contents have settled, and so they start to push out at the bottom. So that's one thing when you're storing these big sets, really try and keep them packed tightly together. Now what about the little sets? These shelves are really great for little sets too, and you can see up here I have these boxes. Now the key thing for storing your little sets is do not use your old shipping boxes. Why should you not use your old shipping boxes? Because they are already creased. So when you put weight on them, they will push in, right? It's really tempting to use these old shipping boxes to store stuff, but just don't do it. Instead, what you should do with these old shipping boxes is cut them up. Cut them up for extra padding. And I'll show you how to do that in just a second. So what do I use? Instead, for a couple dollars a box, standardize on one size box. I get these from Staples, and they're 24 inches long, 16 by 16. Why is it so great to standardize? Because you can take this one, and you can take this one, and they exactly match. And here's one with some stuff in it. You can match. And so now you can fill this. Each one of these will hold over $500 retail of stuff. And I can put pressure on this, and it is not going to collapse. So think about storing in your closet. You could try and wedge a shelf in there to store your sets, or for less than $10, you could stack 4 of these boxes in your closet and hold stuff very, very organized and very secure. So if you're going to store stuff, always stick to a standard size box. It just saves so much hassle for less than a couple dollars a box. Now I wait for Staples and try and get some coupons. They haven't been so forthright with coupons lately, but still, even at full price, maybe you're paying $4 a box. It's so much cheaper than using shelves, and you can stack them really high as long as they are all exactly the same. So move these guys to the side, and once they're stacked in boxes, what's the downfall of putting it in boxes? The downfall is that you can't see what's in there. So what I do, I don't know if you can quite see it here, but I'll pull one out from down here, is I cross-reference in my database a box number, so I know exactly what is in that box. Sometimes I'll even write out what is in the box, and so that helps me know exactly where stuff is. So when I'm storing and building shelves that can actually support the weight of the boxes and are much less expensive and can actually be customized, in small sets, I'm putting in boxes that can be labeled. And what do I do with all my shipping boxes? I cut them up, and I cut them up because when you're shipping a big set, you are never ever going to be paying for the weight of the set. You're always going to fall under the dimensional weight cost because the sets just don't weigh enough for how big a box they are. So what I use instead is I use these, and I layer these in the box above and below, because you never ever want to use pillows. Those air pillows are the worst invention for Lego sets. They're always crushing stuff. But since weight is not an issue, sandwich it, fill it up in that box. That's what I use all these guys for shipping. All right? So when you have, this is just some of my sets. I have about 50 big sets total in my collection, and these are some of the most current ones. And I hope to keep this up to date because I think that would be really interesting to just watch visually as things change throughout the year. So if you have any storage questions, I love constructive, polite comments, and I will try and get to them and respond to them if I can. Until next time, Lego on.